Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Biblio and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. I am here in my jammies.
I am not.
What better way to read Harry Potter than in your jammies? So tell me, Prince Aethelwulf, what happened last time?
Well, those barbarous beasts showed up. Oh, you mean in the book?
Yeah.
Last time we got to hear Creature's side of the story, and why he is the way he is.
And
we also found out R.A.B., Regulus Black.
Regulus Arcturus Black.
Who wasn't as supportive of the Dark Lord as he may have led on to believe. Or maybe he was, but Voldemort made a mistake. He crossed his creature.
Yep.
His house elf. Voldemort will live to regret that. 7 times over.
As long as all the Horcruxes get destroyed.
Well, we know that the locket is not destroyed yet, because Creature couldn't do it.
Right.
And Regulus died in the attempt of getting the locket. So Creature had to take it with him, because he wasn't going to make Creature drink the potion a second time. Because he was a good guy.
Phoenix song for Regulus Black. A true hero.
What is Phoenix song?
I don't know. It's just that's what Fawkes cries when Dumbledore died.
I know, but it wasn't in the movie. Is there a soundtrack?
I don't know. I don't know what it sounds like. I also feel like maybe it sounds different for every person. Whatever helps them. It's supposed to be like mourning made into song, like grief and into song. So it probably sounds really sad.
That's deep. So is it like the love potion where it smells differently to everyone?
I don't know.
Sounds differently to everyone?
I don't know. That's just kind of what I think, is that maybe it sounds a little bit different to everyone. Maybe not. I don't know.
So maybe for some it'll sound like the cooing of a dove, and for others it'll be the squawk of a crow.
Maybe. If that's what your grief sounds like.
That's when you know there's been a murder.
We also found out that Mundungus Fletcher stole the locket from Creature.
Yes.
And so now Creature has been tasked to go find Mundungus Fletcher. So are we ready? Are we ready?
To find out what happens to Mundungus.
Who is like... Come on, he's caused more problems for the Order than been a help. What the hell?
Yeah, that's true.
He's just been a constant pain in everyone's ass.
He's pushing Snape status.
I wouldn't go that far. Well, he is kind of a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm. Snape just did all the issues in one fell swoop. Mundungus has just been, like, picking little by little. Just
Yeah, but, Snape also did save Harry's life, like, a bunch of times. Mundungus Fletcher has not done that. So you gotta...
Yeah, but Mundungus, he... Yeah, okay.
Chapter 11. The Bribe. If Creature could escape a lake full of Inferi, Harry was confident that the capture of Mundungus would take a few hours at most, and he prowled the house all morning in a state of high anticipation. However, Creature did not return that morning, or even by afternoon. By nightfall, Harry felt discouraged and anxious, and a supper composed largely of mouldy bread, upon which Hermione tried a variety of unsuccessful transfigurations, did nothing to help. Creature did not return the following day, nor the day after that. However, 2 cloaked men had appeared in the square outside number 12, and they remained there into the night, gazing in the direction of the house that they could not see. "Death Eaters for sure," said Ron, as he, Harry and Hermione watched from the drawing-room windows. "Reckon they know we're in here?" "I don't think so," said Hermione, though she looked frightened. "Or they'd have sent Snape in after us, wouldn't they?" "Do you reckon he's been in here and had his tongue tied by Moody's curse?" said Ron. "Yeah?" said Hermione. "Otherwise he'd have been able to tell that lot how to get in, wouldn't he? But they're probably watching to see whether we turn up. They know that Harry owns the house, after all." "How do they—" began Harry. "Wizarding wills are examined by the Ministry, remember? They'll know Sirius left you the place." The presence of the Death Eaters outside increased the ominous mood inside number 12. They had not heard a word from anyone beyond Grimmauld Place since Mr. Weasley's Patronus, and the strain was starting to tell. Restless and irritable, Ron had developed an annoying habit of playing with the Deluminator in his pocket. This particularly infuriated Hermione, who was whiling away the wait for Kreacher by studying the Tales of Beedle the Bard, and did not appreciate the way the lights kept flashing on and off. "Will you stop it?" she cried on the third evening of Kreacher's absence, as all light was sucked from the drawing-room yet again. Sorry, said Ron, clicking the Deluminator and restoring the lights. "I don't know I'm doing it." "Well, can't you find something useful to occupy yourself?" "What, like reading kids' stories?" "Dumbledore left me this book, Ron." "And he left me the Deluminator. Maybe I'm supposed to use it." Unable to stand the bickering, Harry slipped out of the room unnoticed by either of them. He headed downstairs toward the kitchen, which he kept visiting because he was sure that was where Kreacher was most likely to reappear. Halfway down the flight of stairs into the hall, however, he heard a tap on the front door, then metallic clicks and the grinding of the chain. Every nerve in his body seemed to tauten. He pulled out his wand, moved into the shadows beside the decapitated house-elf heads, and waited. The door opened. He saw a glimpse of the lamplight square outside, and a cloaked figure edged into the hall and closed the door behind it. The intruder took a step forward, and Moody's voice asked, "Severus Snape?" Then the dust figure rose from the end of the hall and rushed him, raising its dead hand. "It was not I who killed you, Albus," said a quiet voice. The jinx broke. The dust figure exploded again, and it was impossible to make out the newcomer through the dense grey cloud it left behind. Harry pointed his wand into the middle of it. "Don't move!" He had forgotten the portrait of Mrs. Black. At the sound of his yell, the curtains hiding her flew open, and she began to scream. "Mudbloods and filth, dishonouring my house!" Ron and Hermione came crashing down the stairs behind Harry, wands pointing, like his, at the unknown man now standing with his arms raised in the hall below. "Hold your fire! It's me, Remus." "Oh, thank goodness," said Hermione weakly, pointing her wand at Mrs. Black instead. With a bang, the curtain swished shut again, and silence fell. Ron, too, lowered his wand, but Harry did not. "Show yourself!" he called back. Lupin moved forward into the lamplight, hands still held high in a gesture of surrender. "I am Remus John Lupin, werewolf, sometimes known as Moony, one of the 4 creators of the Marauders map, married to Nymphadora, usually known as Tonks, and I taught you how to produce a Patronus, Harry, which takes the form of a stag." "Oh, all right," said Harry, lowering his wand. "But I had to check, didn't I?" "Speaking as your ex-Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, I quite agree that you had to check. Ron, Hermione, you shouldn't be so quick to lower your defences." They ran down the stairs toward him. Wrapped in a thick black travelling cloak, he looked exhausted, but pleased to see them. "No sign of Severus, then?" he asked. "No," said Harry. "What's going on? Is everyone okay?" "Yes," said Lupin, "but we're all being watched. There are a couple of Death Eaters in the square outside." "We know." "I had to apparate very precisely on the top step outside the front door to be sure that they would not see me. They can't know you're in here, or I'm sure they'd have more people out there. They're staking out everywhere that's got any connection to you, Harry. Let's go downstairs. There's a lot to tell you, and I want to let you know what's happened after you left the burrow." They descended into the kitchen, where Hermione pointed her wand at the grate. A fire sprang up instantly. It gave the illusion of coziness in the stark stone walls, and glistened off the long wooden table. Lupin pulled a few butterbeers from beneath his travelling cloak, and they sat down. "I'd have been here 3 days ago, but I needed to shake off the Death Eater tailing me," said Lupin. "So you came straight here after the wedding?" "No," said Harry. "Only after we ran into a couple of Death Eaters in a cafe on Tottenham Court Road." Lupin slopped most of his butterbeer down his front. "What?" They explained what happened. When they finished, Lupin looked aghast. "But how did they find you so quickly? It's impossible to track anyone who apparates unless you grab hold of them as they disappear." "And it doesn't look likely they were just strolling down Tottenham Court Road at the time, does it?" said Harry. "We wondered," said Hermione tentatively, "whether Harry could still have the trace on him." "Impossible," said Lupin. Ron looked smug, and Harry felt hugely relieved.
"Apart from anything else, they'd know for sure Harry were here if he still had the trace on him, wouldn't he? But I can't see how they could have tracked you to Tottenham Court Road. That's worrying. Really worrying."
He looked disturbed, but as far as Harry was concerned, the question could wait. "Tell us what happened after we left. We haven't heard a thing since Ron's dad told us the family were safe."
"Well, Kingsley saved us," said Lupin. "Thanks to his warning, most of the wedding guests were able to disapparate before they arrived."
"Were there Death Eaters or Ministry people?" interjected Hermione.
"A mixture. But to all intents and purposes, they're the same thing now," said Lupin. "There are about a dozen of them, but they didn't know you were there, Harry. Arthur heard a rumour that they tried to torture your whereabouts out of Scrimgeour before they killed him. If it's true, he didn't give you away."
Harry looked at Ron and Hermione. Their expressions reflected the mingled shock and gratitude he felt. He'd never liked Scrimgeour much, but if what Lupin said was true, the man's final act had been to try and protect Harry.
"The Death Eaters searched the burrow from top to bottom," Lupin went on. "They found the ghoul, but didn't want to get too close, and then they interrogated those of us who remained for hours. They were trying to get information on you, Harry, but of course nobody apart from the Order knew that you had been there. At the same time they were smashing up the wedding, more Death Eaters were forcing their way into every Order-connected house in the country. No deaths," he added quickly, forestalling the question. "But they were rough. They burned down Daedalus Diggle's house, but as you know he wasn't there, and they used the Cruciatus curse on Tonks's family. Again, trying to find out where you were after visiting them. They're all right. Shaken, obviously, but otherwise okay."
"The Death Eaters got through all those protective charms?" Harry asked, remembering how effective these had been on the night he crashed in Tonks's parents' garden.
"What you've got to realize, Harry, is that the Death Eaters have got the full might of the Ministry on their side now," said Lupin. "They've got the power to perform brutal spells for identification or arrest. They managed to penetrate every defensive spell we've cast against them, and once inside, they were completely open about why they'd come."
"And are they bothering to give an excuse for torturing Harry's whereabouts out of people?" asked Hermione, an edge to her voice.
"Well,"
said Lupin. He hesitated, then pulled out a folded copy of the Daily Prophet.
"Here,"
he said, pushing it across the table to Harry.
"You'll know sooner or later anyway. That's their pretext for going after you."
Harry smoothed out the paper. A huge photograph of his own face filled the front page. He read the headline over it. "Wanted for questioning about the death of Albus Dumbledore." Ron and Hermione gave roars of outrage, but Harry said nothing. He pushed the newspaper away. He did not want to read any more. He knew what it would say. Nobody but those who'd been at the top of the tower when Dumbledore died knew what really killed him, and, as Rita Skeeter had already told the Wizarding World, Harry had been seen running from the place moments after Dumbledore had fallen.
"I'm sorry, Harry," said Lupin.
"So Death Eaters have taken over the Daily Prophet too?" asked Hermione furiously. Lupin nodded. "But surely people realise what's going on?"
"The coup has been smooth and virtually silent," said Lupin. "The official version of Scrimgeour's murder is that he resigned. He has been replaced by Pius Thickness, who is under the Imperius curse."
"Why didn't Voldemort declare himself Minister of Magic?" asked Ron. Lupin laughed.
"He doesn't need to, Ron. Effectively, he is the Minister. But why should he sit behind a desk at the Ministry? His puppet, Thickness, is taking care of everyday business, leaving Voldemort free to extend his power beyond the Ministry. Naturally, many people have deduced what has happened. There has been such a dramatic change in Ministry policy in the last few days, and many are whispering that Voldemort must be behind it. However, that is the point. They whisper. They daren't confide in each other, not knowing whom to trust. They are scared to speak out, in case their suspicions are true and their families are targeted. Yes, Voldemort is playing a very clever game. Declaring himself might have provoked open rebellion. Remaining masked has created confusion, uncertainty, and fear."
"And this dramatic change in Ministry policy," said Harry, "involves warning the Wizarding World against me instead of Voldemort."
"That's certainly part of it," said Lupin. "And it is a masterstroke. Now that Dumbledore is dead, you, the boy who lived, were sure to be the symbol and rallying point for any resistance to Voldemort. But now, by suggesting you had a hand in the old hero's death, Voldemort has not only set a price on your head, but sown doubt and fear amongst those who may have defended you. Meanwhile, the Ministry has started moving against Muggle-borns."
Lupin pointed at the Daily Prophet.
"Look at page 2.
Hermione turned the pages with the same expression of distaste she'd worn when handling Secrets of the Darkest Art. "Muggle-born Register," she said aloud. "The Ministry of Magic is undertaking a survey of so-called Muggle-borns, the better to understand how they came to possess magical secrets. Recent research undertaken by the Department of Mysteries revealed that magic can only be passed from person to person when wizards reproduce. Where no proven wizarding ancestry exists, therefore, the so-called Muggle-born is likely to have obtained magical power by theft or force. The Ministry is determined to root out such usurpers of magical power, and to this end has issued an invitation to every so-called Muggle-born to present themselves for interview by the newly appointed Muggle-born Registration Commission."
"People won't let this happen," said Ron. "It is happening, Ron," said Lupin. "Muggle-borns are being rounded up as we speak."
"But how are they supposed to have stolen magic?" said Ron. "It's mental. If you could steal magic, there wouldn't be any squibs, were there?"
"I know," said Lupin. "Nevertheless, unless you can prove you have at least one close wizarding relative, you are now deemed to have obtained your magic power illegally and must suffer the punishment."
Ron glanced at Hermione, then said, "What if purebloods and half-bloods swear a Muggle-born's part of their family? I'll tell everyone Hermione's my cousin." Hermione covered Ron's hand with hers and squeezed it.
"Thank you, Ron, but I couldn't let you—"
"You won't have a choice," said Ron fiercely, gripping her hand back. "I'll teach you my family tree so you can answer questions on it." Hermione gave a shaky laugh.
"Ron, as we're on the run with Harry Potter, the most wanted person in the country, I don't think it matters. If I was going back to school, it'd be different. What's Voldemort planning for Hogwarts?" he asked Lupin. "Attendance is now compulsory for every young witch and wizard," he replied. "That was announced yesterday. It's a change because it was never obligatory before. Of course, nearly every witch and wizard in Britain has been educated at Hogwarts, but their parents had the right to teach them at home or send them abroad if they preferred. This way, Voldemort will have the whole wizarding population under his eye from a young age, and it's also another way of weeding out Muggle-borns, because students must be given blood status, meaning that they have proven to the Ministry that they are of wizard descent before they are allowed to attend."
Harry felt sickened and angry. At this moment, excited 11-year-olds would be poring over stacks of newly purchased spellbooks, unaware that they would never see Hogwarts, perhaps never see their families again either. It's... he muttered, trying to find words that did justice to the horror of his thoughts, but Lupin said quietly,
"I know."
Lupin hesitated.
"I'll understand if you can't confirm this, Harry, but the Order is under the impression that Dumbledore left you a mission."
"He did," Harry replied, "and Ron and Hermione are in on it, and they're coming with me."
"Can you confide in me what the mission is?"
Harry looked into the prematurely lined face, framed in thick but greying hair, and wished that he could return a different answer. "I can't, Remus, I'm sorry. If Dumbledore didn't tell you, I don't think I can."
"I thought you'd say that," said Lupin, looking disappointed. "But I might still be of some use to you. You know what I am and what I can do. I could come with you to provide protection. There would be no need to tell me exactly what you're up to."
Harry hesitated. It was a very tempting offer, though how they would keep their mission a secret from Lupin if he were with them all the time he could not imagine. Hermione, however, looked puzzled. "But what about Tonks?" she asked.
"What about her?"
said Lupin. "Well," said Hermione, frowning, "you're married. How does she feel about you going away with us?"
"Tonks will be perfectly safe," said Lupin. "She'll be at her parents' house."
There was something strange in Lupin's tone. It was almost cold. There was also something odd in the idea of Tonks remaining hidden at her parents' house. She was, after all, a member of the Order, and as far as Harry knew, was likely to want to be in the thick of it.
"Remus," said Hermione tentatively, "is everything all right? You know, between you and—" "Everything is fine, thank you," said Lupin pointedly.
Hermione turned pink. There was another pause, an awkward and embarrassed one, and then Lupin said, with an air of forcing himself to admit something unpleasant,
"Tonks is going to have a baby."
"Oh, how wonderful!" squealed Hermione.
"Excellent!"
said Ron enthusiastically. Congratulations, said Harry. Lupin gave an artificial smile that was more like a grimace, then said,
So, do you accept my offer? Will 3 become 4? I cannot believe that Dumbledore would have disapproved. He appointed me your defense against the dark arts teacher, after all, and I must tell you I believe we are facing magic many of us have never encountered or imagined.
Ron and Hermione both looked at Harry. Just to be clear, he said, you want to leave Tonks at her parents' house and come away with us?
She'll be perfectly safe there. They'll look after her, said Lupin.
He spoke with a finality bordering on indifference.
Harry, I'm sure James would have wanted me to stick with you.
Well, said Harry slowly, I'm not. I'm pretty sure my father would have wanted to know why you weren't sticking with your own kid, actually. Lupin's face drained of colour. The temperature in the kitchen must have dropped 10 degrees. Ron stared round the room as though he'd been bidden to memorize it, while Hermione's eyes swivelled backward and forward between Harry and Lupin.
You don't understand,
said Lupin at last. Explain, then, said Harry. Lupin swallowed.
I made a grave mistake in marrying Tonks. I did it against my better judgment, and I have regretted it ever since.
I see, said Harry. So you're just going to dump her and the kid and run off with us? Lupin sprang to his feet. His chair toppled over backward, and he glared at them so fiercely that Harry saw, for the first time ever, the shadow of the wolf upon his human face.
Don't you understand what I've done to my wife and unborn child? I should have never married her. I made her an outcast.
Lupin kicked aside the chair he'd overturned.
You have only seen me amongst the Order, or under Dumbledore's protection at Hogwarts. You don't know how most of the wizarding world sees creatures like me. When they know of my affliction, they can barely talk to me. Don't you know what I've done? Even her own family is disgusted by our marriage. What parents want their only daughter to marry a werewolf? And the child! The child!
Lupin actually seized handfuls of his own hair. He looked quite deranged.
My kind don't usually breed. It would be like me, I'm convinced of it. How can I forgive myself when I knowingly risked passing on my own condition to an innocent child? And if, by some miracle, it's not like me, then it'll be better off, 100 times so, without a father with whom it must be ashamed.
Remus, whispered Hermione, tears in her eyes, don't say that. How could any child be ashamed of you? Oh, I don't know, Hermione, said Harry. I'd be pretty ashamed of him. Harry did not know where his rage was coming from, but it had propelled him to his feet too. Lupin looked as though Harry had hit him. If the Renew regime think Muggle-borns are bad, Harry said, what will they do to a half-werewolf whose father's in the Order? My father died to protect my mother and me, and you reckon he'd tell you to abandon your kid to go on an adventure with us?
How dare you? Said Lupin. This is not about a desire for danger or personal glory. How dare you suggest a...
I think you're feeling a bit of a daredevil, said Harry. You fancy stepping into Sirius's shoes.
Harry, no,
Hermione begged him, but he continued to glare into Lupin's livid face. I'd never have believed this, said Harry. The man who taught me to fight Dementors. A coward. Lupin drew his wand so fast that Harry barely reached for his own. There was a loud bang, and he felt himself flying backward as if punched. As he slammed into the kitchen wall and slid to the floor, he glimpsed the tail of Lupin's cloak disappearing round the door.
Remus! Remus, come back!
Hermione cried, but Lupin did not respond. A moment later they heard the front door slam.
Harry!
Wailed Hermione.
How could you?
It was easy, said Harry. He stood up. He could feel a lump swelling where his head had hit the wall. He was so full of anger he was shaking. Don't look at me like that, he snapped at Hermione. Don't you start on her, snarled Ron.
No, we mustn't fight,
said Hermione, launching herself between the two of them. You shouldn't have said that stuff to Lupin, Ron told Harry. He had it coming to him, said Harry. Broken images were racing each other through his mind. Sirius falling through the veil, Dumbledore suspended, broken in mid-air, a flash of green light and his mother's voice begging for mercy. Parents, said Harry, shouldn't leave their kids unless they've got to.
Harry,
said Hermione, stretching out a consoling hand, but she shrugged it off and walked away. his eyes on the fire Hermione had conjured. He'd once spoken to Lupin out of the fireplace, seeking reassurance about James, and Lupin had consoled him. Now Lupin's tortured white face seemed to swim in the air before him. He felt a sickening surge of remorse. Neither Ron nor Hermione spoke, but felt that they were looking at each other behind his back, communicating silently. He turned round and caught them turning hurriedly away from each other. "I know I shouldn't have called him a coward." "No, you shouldn't have," said Ron at once. "But he's acting like one."
"All the same," said Hermione.
"I know," said Harry. "But if it makes him go back to Tonks, it'll be worth it, won't it?" He could not keep the plea out of his voice. Hermione looked sympathetic, Ron uncertain. Harry looked down at his feet, thinking of his father. Would James have backed Harry in what he'd said to Lupin, or would he have been angry at how his son had treated his old friend? The silent kitchen seemed to hum with the shock of this recent scene, and with Ron and Hermione's unspoken reproaches. The Daily Prophet Lupin had brought was still lying on the table, Harry's own face staring up at the ceiling from the front page. He walked over to it and sat down, opened the paper at random and pretended to read. He could not take in the words. His mind was still too full of the encounter with Lupin. He was sure that Ron and Hermione had resumed their silent communications on the other side of the Prophet. He turned a page loudly, and Dumbledore's name leapt out at him. It was a moment or two before he took in the meaning of the photograph, which showed a family group. Beneath the photograph were the words, "The Dumbledore family, left to right. Albus, Percival holding newborn Ariana, Kendra, and Aberforth." His attention caught, Harry examined the picture more carefully. Dumbledore's father, Percival, was a good-looking man with eyes that seemed to twinkle even in this faded old photograph. The baby, Ariana, was little longer than a loaf of bread and no more distinctive-looking. The mother, Kendra, had jet-black hair pulled into a high bun. Her face had a carved quality about it. Harry thought of photos of Native Americans he'd seen as he studied her dark eyes, high cheekbones and straight nose, formally composed above a high-necked silk gown. Albus and Aberforth were matching lacy-collared jackets and had identical shoulder-length hairstyles. Albus looked several years older, but otherwise the two boys looked very alike. This was before Albus's nose had been broken, and before he started wearing glasses. The family looked quite happy and normal, smiling serenely up out of the newspaper. Baby Ariana's arm waved vaguely out of her shawl. Harry looked above the picture and saw the headline, "Exclusive extract from the upcoming biography of Albus Dumbledore by Rita Skeeter." Thinking it could hardly make him feel any worse than he already did, Harry began to read. "Proud and haughty, Kendra Dumbledore could not bear to remain on mould on the wall after her husband Percival's well-publicized arrest and imprisonment in Azkaban. She therefore decided to uproot the family and relocate to Godric's Hollow, the village that was later to gain fame as the scene of Harry Potter's strange escape from you-know-who. Like mould on the wall, Godric's Hollow was home to a number of wizarding families, but as Kendra knew none of them, she would be spared the curiosity about her husband's crime she had been faced in her former village. By repeatedly rebuffing the friendly advances of her new wizarding neighbours, she soon ensured that her family was left well enough alone. "Slammed the door in my face when I went round to welcome her with a batch of homemade cauldron cakes," says Bathilda Bagshot. "The first year I was there I only ever saw the two boys. Wouldn't have known there was a daughter if I hadn't been picking clementines by moonlight the winter after they moved in, and saw Kendra leading Ariana out into the back garden. Walked her round the lawn once, keeping a firm grip on her, then took her back inside. Didn't know what to make of it." It seems that Kendra thought the move to Godric's Hollow was the perfect opportunity to hide Ariana once and for all, something she had probably been planning for years. The timing was significant. Ariana was barely 7 years old when she vanished from sight, and 7 is the age by which most experts agree that magic will have revealed itself, if present. Nobody now alive remembers Ariana ever demonstrating even the slightest sign of magical ability. It seems clear, therefore, that Kendra made a decision to hide her daughter's existence, rather than suffer the shame of admitting that she had produced a squib, moving away from the friends and neighbours who knew Ariana would, of course, make imprisoning her all the easier. The tiny number of people who henceforth knew of Ariana's existence could be counted upon to keep secret, including her 2 brothers, who deflected awkward questions with the answer their mother had taught them. "My sister is too frail for school." Next week, Albus Dumbledore at Hogwarts, the prizes and the pretense. Harry had been wrong. What he'd just read had indeed made him feel worse. He looked round at the photograph of the apparently happy family. Was it true? How could he find out? He wanted to go to Godric's Hollow, even if Bathilda was in no fit state to talk to him. He wanted to visit the place where he and Dumbledore had both lost loved ones. He was in the process of lowering the newspaper to ask Ron and Hermione's opinions when a deafening crack echoed round the kitchen. For the first time in 3 days, Harry had forgotten all about Kreacher. His immediate thought was that Lupin had burst back into the room, and for a split second he did not take in the mass of struggling limbs that appeared out of thin air right beside his chair. He hurried to his feet as Kreacher disentangled himself and, bowing low to Harry, croaked, "Kreacher has returned with the thief Mundungus Fletcher, master." Mundungus scrambled up and pulled out his wand. Hermione, however, was too quick for him. "Expelliarmus!" Mundungus's wand soared into the air and Hermione caught it. Wild-eyed, Mundungus dived for the stairs. Ron rugby-tackled him and Mundungus hit the stone floor with a muffled crunch. "Ah!" he bellowed, writhing in his attempts to free himself from Ron's grip. "What have I done? Setting a bleeding house elf on me? What are you playing at? What have I done? Let me go! Let me go!" "You're not in much of a position to make threats," said Harry. He threw aside the newspaper, crossed the kitchen in a few strides, and dropped to his knees beside Mundungus, who stopped struggling and looked terrified. Ron got up, panting, and watched as Harry pointed his wand deliberately at Mundungus's nose. Mundungus stank of stale sweat and tobacco smoke. His hair was matted and his robe stained. "Kreacher apologizes for the delay in bringing the thief, master," croaked the elf. "Fletcher knows how to avoid capture, many hidey-holes and accomplices. Nevertheless, Kreacher cornered the thief in the end." "You've done really well, Kreacher," said Harry, and the elf bowed low. "Right, we've got a few questions for you," Harry told Mundungus, who shouted at once. "I panicked, okay? I never wanted to come along, no offence, mate, but I never volunteered to die for you. That was bleeding you-know-who come flying at me. Anyone would have got out of there. I said all along I didn't want to do it." "For your information, none of the rest of us disapparated," said Hermione. "Well, you're a bunch of bleeding heroes, aren't you? But I never pretended I was up for killing myself." "We're not interested in why you ran out on Mad-Eye Moody," said Harry, waving his wand a little closer to Mundungus's baggy, bloodshot eyes. "We already knew you were an unreliable bit of scum." "Well then, why the hell am I being knotted out by house elves? Or is it about them goblets again? I ain't got none of them left, or you could have 'em." "It's not about the goblets either, although you're getting warmer," said Harry. "Shut up and listen." It felt wonderful to have something to do, someone of whom he could demand some small portion of truth. Harry's wand was now so close to the bridge of Mundungus's nose that Mundungus had gone cross-eyed, trying to keep it into view. "When you cleaned out this house of anything valuable," Harry began, but Mundungus interrupted him again. "Sirius never cared about any of that junk." There was the sound of pattering feet, a blaze of shining copper, an echoing clang, and a shriek of agony. Kreacher had taken a run at Mundungus and hit him over the head with a saucepan. "Call him off! Call him off! He should be locked up!" screamed Mundungus, cowering as Kreacher raised the heavy-bottomed pan again. "Kreacher, no!" shouted Harry. Kreacher's thin arms trembled with the weight of the pan, still held aloft. "Perhaps one more, Master Harry, for luck." Ron laughed. "We need him conscious, Kreacher, but if he needs persuading, you can do the honours," said Harry. "Thank you very much, Master," said Kreacher with a bow, and he retreated a short distance, his great pale eyes still fixed upon Mundungus with loathing. "When you stripped this house of all the valuables you could find," Harry began, "you took a bunch of stuff from the kitchen cupboard. There was a locket there." Harry's mouth was suddenly dry. He could sense Ron and Hermione's tension and excitement too. "What did you do with it?" "Why?" asked Mundungus. "Is it valuable?" "You've still got it!" cried Hermione. "No, he hasn't," said Ron shrewdly. "He's wondering whether he could have asked more money for it." "More?" said Mundungus. "That wouldn't have been anything difficult. Bleeding giving it away, didn't I? No choice." "What do you mean?" "I was selling in Diagon Alley and she came up to me and asked if I got a licence for trading in magical artefacts. Bleeding snoop. She was going to fine me, but she took a fancy to the locket and told me she'd take it and left me off that time, and to think myself lucky." "Who was this woman?" said Harry. "I dunno, some ministry hag." Mundungus considered for a moment, brow wrinkled. "Little woman, bow on top of her head." He frowned and then said, "Looked like a toad." Harry dropped his wand. It hit Mundungus on the nose and shot red sparks into his eyebrows, which ignited. "Aguamenti!" screamed Hermione, and a jet of water streamed from her wand, engulfing a spluttering and choking Mundungus. Harry looked up and saw his own shock reflected in Ron and Hermione's faces. The scars on the back of his right hand had seemed to be tingling again.
Oh dear. That's gonna be interesting. Umbridge has the locket.
Dolores Jane Umbridge.
I mean, she works at the Ministry. Voldemort's taken over, so maybe Voldemort already has the locket.
Guess who's back? Back again.
I don't want her back.
Umbridge is back. Tell your friends.
Oh man, that's gonna be an interesting interrogation of her. How are they gonna get the locket
How
back?
are they going to get it?
I don't know. They're gonna have to bring in some of the centaurs to do the interrogation.
She works at the Ministry. Though.
Or, I'm sure she doesn't sleep there. I mean, she's gotta leave at some point. And I mean, Creature can separate anywhere.
I love Creature in this chapter.
I know, his outlook just totally shifted on Harry.
I know.
He's like, alright, Master Potter, you're cool.
Let me hit him one more time, just for luck.
Or if you can't get the centaurs to interrogate her, you need the guy from Monty Python with the coconuts.
The guy with the coconuts?
Yeah.
The guy at the bridge, you mean?
No, the guy with coconuts. The clipping and clopping of hosts.
Oh, gotcha. I gotcha. Wow. Sorry.
Wow.
I didn't correlate it to the clippity clop of the centaurs. I was just like, what?
You either tell us or you can tell our friends. Clip, 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 clip. I hear him coming. Where did you get a coconut? But yeah, Creature was great.
Creature was great. And, how about Lupin? And Harry getting into it.
I know. At each other's throats.
Yeah.
I don't know. I see Lupin's point, but I think I gotta side with Harry a little bit here. Or, Lupin's smart. He could have, lied or something. I have a kid, and he's gonna be half werewolf, so I want to help you find the Horcruxes and kill Voldemort so that my child can grow up without the discrimination towards him.
I don't think Ron and Hermione understand why Harry reacted so emotionally to that.
Well, yeah, they have both their parents.
Right. And I don't think it really occurred to Lupin either why Harry reacted so savagely to that. For Harry to have to sit there and listen to someone saying that they're going to abandon their family for whatever reason, and Harry sitting there going like...
I'm just saying, we never really got a reason from Lupin, and his reasons could be virtuous, I guess. Because like I said... I get where he's coming from. With Voldemort in power, his child is going to have a much rougher time than if he wasn't.
I get where he's coming from. I get his hesitancy and his conflicts. Even before Voldemort was in power.
And I also see how Harry is, because he had to grow up without parents, and he knows what a struggle that is to grow up without his parents.
Right.
I feel like it was just a lot of anger, and had they sat down and talked about it, I think they could have come up with an understanding from both sides.
I think Lupin is...
Because I think they were... Yeah. I think they were both kind of right.
I think Harry is right in the sense that Lupin needs to see the fact that Tonks chose him. She wanted him.
Mhm.
She doesn't care. And I get the terror of, well, what if the boy is born with the affliction and this and that, but you know what? Wouldn't that child be better off having your support than not, if he is half werewolf?
Mhm.
And Lupin just doubts himself so much that he just automatically assumes his child would be ashamed of him, and Harry says, yeah, if you leave, he'd be ashamed of you. Like, Lupin has no confidence to think that maybe his kid would actually be really proud of him for
Mhm.
living his life and being brave in the face of such discrimination. His just automatic assumption is that everything he touches is bad and he's going to ruin it.
Yeah.
And that just sucks. Like,
I
he
know.
doesn't...
I feel like Harry is more right.
Yeah.
But
You can understand...
Lupin is right for the wrong reasons. Because I
think Lupin's just scared. I think he's terrified.
I agree. But I also think it's not... maybe not the right choice, but not the wrong choice to leave and help Harry. Because, like I said, it could end up meaning an easier, better life for his child.
To defeat Voldemort.
Yeah. By helping Harry do that.
But that's not why he wants to help Harry.
That's why I'm saying he's right for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think his decision to go was wrong, but the reasons why he decided that was wrong. No, I mean...
it's still, even in my mind, I'm like, you know, because of all the challenges that you're facing, you should be there to protect Tonks more than ever.
I mean, yes, that's the other side of the coin. And would it be easier for your child to grow up with someone who's been through that and can understand what you're going through? Absolutely.
Well, just the pure fact of that they're married and she's now pregnant, she's a huge target, and you're just gonna... Oh, she'll be fine with her parents? Will she, though? Will she? You know? Like...
Mm-hmm.
I
But
think
she's also a very accomplished wizard.
I think Lupin is being a little selfish. Because he's scared.
Yeah.
And he's full of self-doubt, and he's being selfish.
No, I agree. I
And
agree with that part.
I think everything Harry said was pretty right on the money. He just didn't deliver it in the nicest way possible. Could have been a lot calmer about the whole thing.
That's what I mean. I think they needed to let go of their anger a little bit and just
Discuss it.
Because like I said, Harry was definitely more right, but didn't really project that well.
No.
And Lupin was not wrong, but he wasn't right for the reasons why he did it.
And you can see, like, Lupin, it's like tormenting him. He's like pulling on his hair. He's freaking out.
Mhm.
Like, he's very... Oh. Falling apart and conflicted.
I think that goes hand in hand with the fact that he really doesn't have too many people to talk to.
Right. He doesn't.
Like, now it's Tonks.
Right.
That's it.
And he thought he thought, you know, he could come to Harry, and Harry is telling him, no, you need to... Basically, like, no, you need to man up and get out of here. But yeah, Lupin has lost literally every single person in his life who's been close to him.
Yeah.
Tonks is all he has, and he is terrified that he's ruined it in some way.
And it might just be...
I just really feel for him. He is in a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm. And I might be thinking too far into it, but he might just be afraid of endangering Tonks more.
Oh, I think he is, for sure.
And his child.
I think he is. I think it's all of that. I think he is definitely terrified that he's ruined their lives. He's ruined her life.
Kind
Him
of
being around puts her at even more risk, potentially.
Exactly. He's
Yeah.
He's kind of portraying the same ideologies that Harry gets. That
No, don't come with me. Yeah.
People would be safer without me around.
Yep.
Not to the same degree, because, I mean, Harry is the one they want.
But it's the same
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, Asio Scrimger's pants for my dude refusing to give Harry up.
Allegedly. We don't know that he,
That's the
didn't.
word on the street.
Yeah.
So, in my eyes, he's kind of redeemed himself a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
He redeemed himself. Dudley's redeemed himself.
I mean, I don't think he was ever, like, a bad person.
No, I don't think so.
I mean, technically, Harry didn't have anything against Scrimger. It was, the Ministry
the
itself.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Scrimger was working within a broken system.
Mm-hmm.
Was he worse than Fudge? Was he better than Fudge?
Oh, better than Fudge.
I think he was better
Way
than...
better than Fudge.
I think he was better than Fudge, but he...
Scrimger was trying to hide it, but he was trying to do something about it in the background. Fudge was just living in his own fantasy world.
Scrimger was trying to do something about it and show that they were doing something about it, but showing that they were getting more done and doing better than they actually were.
Yeah.
That was the issue. And he let Dolores Umbridge come back. That was kind of... that was pretty bad.
I mean, luckily he did, though, because now they know where to find her.
That's true.
If he didn't, who knows where she'd be.
But yeah, that's true. How about that Muggle-born Registration Act?
Yeah, that doesn't sound familiar to any other...
historical events.
I'm sure they have own little Muggle summer camps now, too.
It's pretty nuts that that's how they're portraying it, is that the witch or wizard who cannot prove that they have any wizarding ancestry will have been deemed to have stolen their magical abilities.
Yeah.
Ron's sitting there like, that is the stupidest shit I've ever heard. What? But so great how he wants to protect Hermione. He's like, listen, I'll tell you, you're gonna be my cousin. I'll tell you all my family's names. We'll. She's just like, it's very sweet, Ron. But we're on the run with Harry Potter. It's not gonna matter.
Yeah. You could be Voldemort's full-blood brother. You're on the run with Harry Potter. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Well, they attempt to kill you at least.
But it's very sweet.
Yes.
I don't know.
Be weird though, telling everyone they're cousins and how they're acting to each other. You guys are from the Alabama, ain't you? So anyways, what's the next chapter?
Well, we also got that article about Dumbledore in this chapter too.
Oh yeah, another Rita Skeeter article.
About how Percival went to Azkaban, and Kendra took the family away, locked Ariana up.
No, she took her out the one time. She wasn't locked up.
That's true. And that...
Maybe she was a werewolf.
And that, Aberforth and Albus had to lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Harry. All your beliefs about Dumbledore just...
Or maybe she was a vampire. Maybe that's why no one saw her. She came out at night. I mean, could have been.
Who knows? Who knows? I don't know.
Maybe that's what the goats were for. They were giving her goat blood. To satiate her appetite. So that everyone else didn't get munched on.
I was listening to this little mini documentary about Viking life, like everyday Viking life, and they said that the average Viking household just consisted of one big room. where you had all your stuff, you know, your hearth and your beds and everything, and that your animals, namely goats, lived in the house with you.
Yep.
And I just... Every time, goats now.
I learned about that in Guns, Germs, and Steel, actually, because it talks about the spread of diseases from animals to people and how it used to happen a lot back in the day, but it still happens today, because in some places that's
still how you live. Yeah.
They can't afford to have separate housing, so it's kind of just in with each other.
Right. I just was like, does Aberforth let the goats stay in his house?
Oh, yes. He has a barn, but they can still stay in the house.
Anyway. Next chapter is called Magic is Might.
Magic is Might.
Yep.
Almost sounded like you said Magic is Mike. Magic Mike? What is this chapter about?
Magic is might.
But is might magic?
I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have a wand measuring contest. Next chapter.
All I know is that we now know that Umbridge has the locket.
That's true.
And that's all we know.
Yeah, I don't know. And give it to Rowling. Like, this book, all the chapter titles are very vague and encrypted.
Yeah, you don't know what's gonna happen.
You're just gonna see some mighty magic. That's all we know.
I can't wait for the next 2 chapters. It's gonna get fucking awesome.
There may or may not be a little magic mic action, though.
No magic like. No.
Oh, okay, never mind.
No.
No Accio Scrimgeour's Pains type thing.
Not anymore. He's dead. It's over now. Just have to Accio somebody else's pants.
But whose? Umbridge's, maybe.
Just to embarrass her, maybe.
Embarrass her and make everyone else sick.
Yeah, why not?
See her toad spawn.
Gross. That was a whole other level of disgusting.
And on that note...
please like, comment, and subscribe, and don't spoil anything, or I shall have to tell my mistress on you. Please join us next time for chapter 12, Magic is Might.